Everyone in the room would stare at Cary Grant the second he stepped foot in it. People of both genders flocked to him because of his charismatic demeanor and attractive appearance. In addition to being physically appealing, he personified every desirable quality in a man of his time. Put another way, Cary Grant was perfect in every respect. His magnetic personality wasn't the only thing that set him apart, though. Not only was Grant captivating in the public eye, but his career was also noteworthy. During his golden years in Hollywood, he was unrivaled. In addition, he was named the second best male actor by the American Film Institute, trailing only the illustrious Humphrey Bogart. Cary Grant's life was far from perfect despite his fame, fortune, and critically acclaimed roles. It must be stressed, nonetheless, that his existence was far from dreamlike. Actually, it was defined by a tragedy that began when he was a little boy. Years after his passing, his ex-wife has broken her silence to expose the tragic truth of his inner battles. On top of that, this video will serve as a tutorial. Contrary to the rosy image for which Cary Grant is famous, his upbringing was, to put it bluntly, a terrible hell. Archibald Alexander Leach, better known as Cary Leach, came into this world in Bristol, England, on January 18, 1904. His nickname is what people remember him by. He endured everyday struggles due to the harsh and impoverished environment in which he resided. People around him were abusing alcohol to dull the ache of living in a place where his family was already struggling to make ends meet. Regrettably, Elias Leach, the father of the future fame, was not an exception. As a result of Elias's drinking, the family's foundation began to crumble. It was clear that he was a heavy drinker. As a young guy, Grant was acutely aware of the chaos that his father's addiction caused in the house. The family's already meager finances were further depleted when Elias's drinking rendered him physically and mentally incapable of helping them. The reality that Cary really needed a father figure. His frequent unreliability and emotional detachment were unaffected by Elias's presence. His mother Elsie was also going through a tough time, but it was different from how he was going through it. Unfortunately, Elsie's severe depression went untreated and unacknowledged until her son John, Cary's brother, passed away. Because her mother was so preoccupied with her own grief, young Cary never received the affection and attention she craved. These were things that Cary's mom couldn't provide for her. Due to her overwhelming grief, his mother was unable to provide him the attention and support he needed, notwithstanding his wish that she could provide him with unwavering support. The fact that 9-year-old Cary saw the most horrific event of his childhood just added further complexity to the problem. At that moment, his mother vanished into thin air. His father had given him false information his mom hadn't taken a long vacation. Unbeknownst to his son, Elias had actually put her to a mental institution. Since Cary believed his mother had left him on purpose, he felt even more abandoned and upset for a long time. They emotionally disconnected from Cary at that point, so he was left to fend for himself. He learnt at an early age to project an image of confidence and charm in order to numb the crippling inner pain he was feeling. It was because of this that he finally overcame his feelings of isolation and terror. He would eventually become a famous figure in Hollywood thanks to the charisma and charm he gained while wearing this disguise. Sadly, nobody knew that it was a defense mechanism he used to avoid painful memories from his youth. When everything else in Grant's life seemed to be collapsing around him, he discovered an unexpected source of optimism. This specific location served as the theater. He found solace in the theater as an outlet from the emotionally and physically abusive upbringing he had. By devoting himself to creative pursuits, he was able to escape the stresses of daily life and find fulfillment. Going to attend Christmas pantomimes with his dad was one of the few things that made him happy when he was a kid. Even though they had a rocky relationship, the young Cary grew passionate about the theater because of these trips. An item that would wind up saving her life. Cary started going to the theater more often after a short while. He found the immediate sense of belonging he had been missing in his former setting when he befriended the Bob Pender stage group, an acrobatic dance team. Cary was overjoyed to join this ensemble since it gave him the opportunity to test out new territory in terms of vocal performance and artistic expression. He chose to join the group after finishing his stilt walking training. More than simply a means of self-expression, the theater provided him with direction in life. Both Cary's enjoyment of performing and his sense of connection to the audience grew stronger with each performance, fueling his love of the theater. Cary's devotion to the theater deepened as she aged. He got his start working backstage at Bristol theaters when he was 13 years old. He immersed himself in the theater world at every opportunity, acquiring knowledge and skills along the way. Even while doing magic performances at the Bristol Empire, David Devante found himself responsible for the lighting. His family's gloomy outlook on life was helped by his time spent working behind the scenes, which he came to value more and more as his love for the theater grew. There was a marked difference in the classroom. Although Cary possessed adequate intellectual abilities, he never demonstrated any interest in his education. In addition to his stunning good looks and incredible acrobatic skills, he had a natural talent in the sport of fives. Athletically, he excelled, but he was also mischievous and preferred to hang out with his pals than get his homework done. He was an impish individual. In the end, Cary dropped out of school since he wasn't interested in continuing his education. Some say he was caught in the female-only restroom or that he and several of his classmates were involved in a heist. However, further data was also provided. By this point, Cary had already decided to forego her education in favor of a career in show business. He returned to the school with unwavering resolve to achieve his ambitions, just 3 days after being expelled from the Penders. A reliable source of income, a place to live, and he was permitted to keep attending dancing classes until he turned 18 since his father had co-signed a contract with the Penders when he started working in Southampton. This was the turning point in his journey that would bring him into the production industry. For Cary, joining the Pender Group was the deciding factor in continuing his career. Things started to turn around for Cary, and she started to enjoy her life more. The child's lean, agile, and completely controlled physique became a signature of his acting style while he was touring the nation playing pantomimes. He gained knowledge in the entertainment industry and a broader range of skills through his participation in unit activities. The RMS Olympic set sail for America on July 21, 1920, carrying the Pender Ensemble. This was the turning point in their career. At the tender age of 16, Cary felt as though the voyage across the Atlantic marked the start of a new chapter in her life. An unforeseen incident that changed his life's trajectory occurred while he was on board. On the same ship as Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford, two of Hollywood's most famous performers were honeymooning. Playing shuffleboard with Fairbanks was a fantastic learning experience for Cary. Cary was constantly interested in learning from influential people. Cary would gradually adopt the actor's charisma, confidence, and physical attractiveness. The New York Hippodrome, the biggest theater in the world at the time, capable of holding over 6,000 people, was the site of Cary and the Pender Troupe's performance upon their arrival in New York. For a child of his age, Cary's ability to perform in 12 plays weekly for 9 months on such a prestigious stage was quite astounding. Due to the demanding schedule, his passion and commitment to the job shone through. The full success of Good Times allowed Cary to finally witness the results of his long period of hard effort. As word of his performances spread, he started to feel that a career in show business was not out of the question, but rather within his grasp. In the twilight of the Roaring '20s, just before the Great Depression hit, Cary's career took off. He was the undisputed king of American theatrical musicals and comedies, steadily rising to prominence as a multi-talented performer. He ultimately broke through in the Hollywood industry after inking a deal with Paramount Pictures in 1932. While his real name was Archie Leitch, studio execs thought it lacked the ring of a leading man. They settled on the name Cary Grant for him, a name that would subsequently be linked to societal elegance and sophistication. It wasn't until 1941 that Cary decided to officially agree on the name. Complete metamorphosis into the iconic figure that Hollywood would cherish and remember for his whole career. Cary quickly became a household name after starting his Hollywood career with little parts in low-budget features and short films. Fans and critics alike were captivated by his performance as a rich playboy in Blonde Venus, which heralded the rise of star power. But it wasn't until 1933 that Cary's career really took off, and Mae West was the one responsible for this. She cast him as the protagonist in the two highest-grossing films. It was because she saw something extraordinary in him that she composed the songs She'd Done Him Wrong, and I'm No Angel. Cary rose to fame in Hollywood thanks to her parts in these films. Despite his guarded demeanor, Cary was subtly building the on-screen persona that would define his career in these early films. The image that would define his career was this one. His elegant performance and refined good looks made him an immediate sex icon. He wasn't intimidating, on the contrary, he was a warm and friendly guy. The peculiarity of his speech made him stand out. His Cockney accent is something he's trying to eradicate. In order to increase his charisma and leave a lasting impression on audiences, Cary developed a clipped and peculiar speech pattern. Cary Grant was already a household name in 1935 when his contract with Paramount ended. A huge star he was. Still, Cary wasn't the kind to belong inside bars. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he opted to become a freelancer so he could direct his professional life in a way that piqued his interest and get the job done. Considering the choice that was taken, among the many brilliant actors who Cary managed to incorporate in his impressive collection of work are some of cinema's all-time greats. He became one of Hollywood's most beloved leading men by the late 1930s and early 1940s, when he deftly blended comedic and action parts. His directorial work on screwball comedies, especially those starring Katharine Hepburn, catapulted him to stardom and acclaim. Their explosive chemistry was on full display in films like Holiday and Bringing Up Baby, where Grant's charisma and comic timing were the stars. Despite Grant's sincere belief that the films starring Irene Dunne and himself will go down in history as classics due to their electric chemistry and hilarious on-screen banter, he did find a woman who was a perfect fit for him, and they appeared together in The Awful Truth in My Favorite Wife. The picture Penny Serenade, for which he received his first Oscar nomination, allowed him to convey the full range of his emotions. As impressive as his combat roles were, Grant's comedic performances were equally noteworthy. His acting and charisma were on full display in the films Gunga Din and Only Angels Have Wings. His magnetic personality shone through in both of these movies. His star power was further solidified through his partnerships with renowned filmmakers like Howard Hawks and Frank Capra. However, what truly distinguished him from others was his collaboration with Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock saw a darker side to Grant, whereas others had focused on his lighter personality. Grant brought a new level of complexity and moral complexity to his on-screen presence in films like Notorious and Suspicion by playing characters with multiple layers of motivations and issues. As his career progressed, Grant eagerly took on parts that allowed him to demonstrate his adaptability. In Woody Capri's film To Catch a Thief, he co-starred with Grace Kelly. He was already a household name in Hollywood before his iconic turn in North by Northwest, in which he expertly combined comedy with tension. Even though Grant was never in the running for an Oscar, his impact on cinema is unparalleled. Cinematic classics such as An Affair to Remember and Mr. include him in key parts. There will always be a place for the idea of chance. Although Cary achieved iconic success and became famous throughout the history of the entertainment industry, the traumas he faced as a child had a profound effect on his life as an actor and director. Unfortunately, he never fully recovered from these wounds, and they accompanied him everywhere he went. Throughout his childhood and early adult years, Grant believed that his mother, Elsie Leitch, had died. It had been quite some time since she'd last seen him. This is Grant's father's account of what happened when he committed Elsie to a mental institution at the age of 9. Elsie stayed at Bristol's Glenside Hospital for nearly 20 years to treat her manic depressive episodes. Grant had already risen to prominence in Hollywood by the time he learned the truth in 1938. He apparently was surprised to hear from a relative that his mother was alive and well, as one might expect. Grant returned to England in an attempt to heal fences with her. Their meeting was characterized by a mix of joy and sorrow. Elsie felt emotionally exposed and alone due to her lengthy stay in a mental institution. The harm had already been done. Despite Grant's best attempts to console his mother upon their reunion, which involved relocating her to a better home and paying her numerous visits. Elsie never got over the trauma of her years spent in the institution and the long amount of time she was apart from her son. There was a hole in Grant's life and relationships in particular because his parents weren't around when he was growing up. All through his life, this emptiness remained. Like when he was a kid and thought his mom had left him, he worried a lot that the people he cared about would leave him. It was his worst dread that they would forsake him. This concern remained with him constantly throughout his marriage and other relationships. Despite Grant's greatest efforts, none of his 5 marriages were able to endure. His fear of abandonment prevented him from finding love and stability in any of his marriages, even though he entered each one with good intentions. Just over a year after tying the wedding with Virginia Sherrill, in 1934, he filed a petition for dissolution of marriage. Grant is the one who allegedly touched her, according to Virginia. Their split was all the more unexpected because of her demand that Grant pay her a substantial amount every week. His marriage to the affluent Harris Barbara Hutton was his second romance that garnered public attention. He remained in this connection for an extended period of time. The marriage between the two people was short-lived, lasting barely 3 years, ending in 1945. Regardless of how quickly they were attached, they were considered cash and carry a nickname due to Hutton's enormous wealth.